Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my Phantom thoughts. In this episode, I've got calls from Jason from the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, as well as Riley from the Diegetic Advancement Podcast, plus more Tales of the Dragon Slayers. As I go into the feedback section, the call-ins, Jason called in a couple of times. One of his was about the OSR in general, and one of them was about gold for XP. Riley also touched mainly for gold from XP in his call, so those two are going to be together when I address that. So it'll just be one big response. So let's get to it.
Hey, this is Jason, just calling about episode 119. You're talking about video on the OSR and how it doesn't really mesh. I think the problem is people conflate old school games and the OSR. And the thing is, they're totally different things. Not totally different things. They're related, but they're not the same thing, which is why AD&D doesn't map to what a lot of people consider OSR principles. So, I am an old school gamer. I'm not an OSR gamer, to be honest. There are things in the OSR I enjoy and things I appreciate, but at heart, I'm an old school gamer. I'm happy to take the old school games, play them mostly as they're written, and just go with them. Now, we've seen some communities get into games like AD&D. Unfortunately, they're kind of polarizing communities, like the classic adventure gaming community and the BroSR and things like that. But you also got like the Dead Game Society that goes out and just runs these old out-of-print games, which is kind of cool. Of course, AD&D isn't out of print. You can go buy it on Drive to RPG from Wizards of the Coast. But, yeah, I think old school games and OSR games really are different categories. And that's where a lot of confusion comes in. And that's why people want to come in and say, well, why isn't RuneQuest OSR? Well, because it's an old school game. It doesn't, And that's why we have these definitional issues, is because people, not you, but people in general, there are a lot of people out there that confuse old games with OSR games. And OSR is a play style and a thought, but really OSR isn't necessarily what a lot of people did back in the day. Maybe Matt Finch played that way back in the day. I'm not saying he didn't. But really, a lot of what we see with the OSR is something that developed in the last 20 years. It is not what happened in the 70s. So people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. And I really appreciate your show. Thank you for all that you do, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for that call. I do think, just based on various blog posts and social media interactivity that I've seen over the years, that at one time I think OSR was supposed to be old school play, but I think there has been, I think there's been multiple splits, but I think one big split has been between, is OSR about the style of play versus is OSR about playing with certain game sets and those that were influenced by them. Because I remember a couple of years ago when we had the first OSR, and a lot of people were, since it was the first one, were talking about what they considered OSR, and there were a lot of folks talking about TSR rule sets and rule sets derived pretty directly from them. That's what OSR is. That's what old school rules, old school Renaissance, old school revival is. It's about bringing back the old rule sets. And at that time, I think there was pretty heavy emphasis on really the BX or possibly BECME rule sets in specifically. And of course, the Swords and Wizardly line that's derived from OD&D is also very popular in OSR circles. And I think just from the things that I've read and seen, that one of the first rule sets to come out in sort of an OSR, it was kind of pre OSR, I think, but I think it helped develop and lead into the OSR. It was Osric, which is based on AD&D, which is what was an intent to kind of reformat, restate the AD&D rules so that people can continue writing adventures for them. Since at that time, 3.5 I think was the established D&D current D&D set. And I think over the years, as people have maybe seen their view of OSR not be the mainstream line of thought in OSR, you've had kind of the split offs of classic adventure gaming, or gaming raw with AD&D, or what have you. And you have had people who have gotten pretty aggressive in saying that their way is the right way of doing it. And how much of that is, it's a flex, it's a show, I don't know. Uh, I know a lot of the same folks that flex pretty hard that their way is the only right way to play are also folks where I see they're doing a lot of pro wrestling memes, in their social media as they're talking about that. So I think that may be as much a personality as play style situation. And I think it's a shame that in a lot of ways what I think enabled kind of the spread of OSR, the idea of the OSR, the G plus communities, on the one hand, they were great at, bringing people together around those ideas. But on the other hand, when G plus was retired, a lot of that seems to have been lost. I don't think a lot of people went back and saved, their posts and things like that so that they would be accessible in another form, in another format. So if you didn't already have connections to the people and the blogs and the message groups and the bulletin boards, then you would be kind of lost, because that those central hubs that connected all those people and all those organizations and all those groups, it's gone now. And that may be something that I need to look into for next year, to try to look at finding and digging into more of those blogs. It's something I've been meaning to do. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, since the Thought Eater podcast ceased producing new episodes, because that was a kind of a central part of that podcast. Most episodes was going over what was being written on some of the blogs, and then the Blogs on Tape podcast as well, which every time I think it's defunct, suddenly they come back with a bunch of episodes and then disappear for a while. But that's also one that got me into looking into the blogs. And I've got, the blog reader and all the blogs I've shared in it, but it's a matter of going through them and reading them and seeing what's there, and going into some of the back catalog, so to speak, and seeing what's there. But I think there's a lot there, a lot to be said about the OSR and how many different directions it's gone in. So, lot of thoughts off what you got in with, Jason. So I appreciate that call.
Hey, Jason here, calling about gold for XP. So, I don't think you're wrong, because I don't think that's the way to frame it. I don't necessarily agree with you, but that doesn't mean that you're wrong. I just think there are different ways to play, and I think your way to play is valid, 100%. And I don't think that would, if you and your group wanted to play that way, I don't think there'd be an issue with it. I think there is value in both getting the experience, the actual adventuring part, in addition to gathering the gold. Because in 80, now it depends on the game, of course. We talk about OSR like it's this monolithic thing, but you get XP for different things in different games. And a lot of these games, you do get XP for experience, for experiences, for adventuring, for meeting goals, things like that. You do it. There are people and there are house rules and there are systems where you get XP for exploration. So each hex you move into, you get XP for, right? And even when you look like AD&D and OD&D, you get experience for killing monsters as well. So it's not like you only get it for each gold piece you get. There are other things you get gold for. I mean, XP. I'm confused myself. You get experience for killing things in D&D as well in some versions. So it's not just the gold. But I think there's a value in both accumulating the wealth and managing it. Part of that management is spending on training, and actually adventuring, gaining the XP you get. So I think there's a good thing there. I think it works in AD&D if you want to play it in the spirit of the game as written. But I don't think you're going to break anything if you ran it the way you mentioned there in your episode either. So I don't think you're wrong. I just think it's a different way of looking at it. And I know the training part a lot of people bounce off of, but I think it can add something to the campaign, and especially if you're running with a stable of characters and you don't just have that one PC who has a destiny like some games have, but you're playing that campaign-centric game where the individual PCs are just playing pieces that move in and out of the campaign, but the campaign goes regardless of those individual PCs. Anyhow, great job. Thank you for doing this month, and I will talk to you soon.
Hey, Pink Phantom Riley here. Really enjoyed your OSR content. The extra context around the 4Z moments, very useful. They're often forgotten or not understood with some of the sort of headline zingers in that document. Rules, for example. I really like the quote from, I can't remember the game, but where a rule, if it can't be remembered, it just doesn't exist. Make up a ruling and move on. Really great stuff. I did want to call in on your latest episode specifically around gold for XP. Now, of course, you use whatever XP system you like and what works for you. You're running the game. But I wanted to bring up some stuff that I like about gold for XP. So you make a good point that gold is not necessarily more objective than some other system. You don't mention another system, so I can't do any comparison here necessarily, but I do think gold for XP tends to enable more player choice and risk assessment. I think gambling is kind of some of the fun of the game where you know what the reward is, you've got to assess the risk and gamble on, is it worth it? And some of that player skill is involved in that, but also agency as well. I don't think you have agency if you don't have informed decisions. If you don't know what the reward is necessarily, or an idea of the reward, you can't make a decision. Whereas some other XP system might be more opaque. I also think it's easier for me as a GM to place an amount of gold, distribute them amongst a bunch of rooms with some challenges placed without following guidance in the rule system, for example. And if a party comes in and overcomes those challenges easy or hard, or avoids them entirely, or hits absolutely every single one, it just doesn't matter. They get the XP for the gold they find. I can't be tempted to not award the full XP amount. I can't be tempted to award more, for example. And sure, with a perfectly fair GM, the XP totals won't be different at the end. But one, I don't think a perfectly fair GM exists, and I'm imagining some other XP system to be more subjective, and that's just going to lead to different results. It's also, I think it's just simpler, players tracking their XP this way. I don't have to track, did they overcome this challenge, or they skirted around that? Does that count as avoiding it, or do they just not run into it? I don't know. Yeah, whereas they can tell me at the end of the session, this is what I've got in my inventory, this is how much XP I get. Easy as that. Which also gives you the encumbrance challenge as well. How do you get the gold out? Which can potentially be fun. As for not receiving XP for other types of play, politicking and intrigue and things like that, fair, though I think it's an incredibly popular rule for just giving reward gold for these things and having that count towards XP. As for acquiring some item, using a magic item, having XP prices or whatever, even if they're not a magic item, I don't have any issues having an item reward XP more than it's worth to a buyer. Though if it is actually valuable for its information, surely someone could pay full price for it. You can find a wizard or a sage, and so I'm not awarding XP for how much they actually sell it for, just how much it's worth. So removing the gold acquisition step entirely and just saying, okay, this is how much training costs, I think you're then making pretty hard decisions about how to spend your gold. Or maybe it's easy because maybe you just always want to spend it on leveling up, right? And not on things like developing relationships, acquiring businesses or domains, or any other creative thing a player might come up with. Whereas having the gold steps still matter kind of puts on a cap on how much you can level up, and gives you excess gold to spend cool stuff on. Though I don't think training is that popular overall in the OSR sphere in its totality. Interested to hear what you think, and what XP system you perhaps use instead. Very interesting topic. Again, great content this month. Looking forward to your regular stuff as well. Bye for now.
All right, so to get further into the gold for XP rabbit hole here, first to answer Riley's question at the end there, what XP system I'm using. I'm just using the AD&D system. So treasure, you get money, you get XP for treasure for gold value. There's also XP for monsters, and I've been using that as if you overcome the monster. So it's not necessarily killing them. If you get a successful roll on your reaction roll with intelligent monsters, and they're amenable to you, and you get them essentially to do what you want to do, then that counts as overcoming them. So you won't get XP for any kind of treasure they're carrying or anything. Obviously, they'll keep that with them unless you go back and steal it or whatever. So with the party I have now, where there's a paladin in the party, unless there's a radical alignment difference, the party kind of has an unfair advantage. Well, I guess it's not unfair. They have an advantage in dealing with intelligent creatures because the natural charisma of the paladin really helps them out there. And I agree, Riley, with what you said about a lot of OSR type game groups don't seem to care much about training costs. I do think that's a sort of a minority grouping, even within people who play old school styles of play, uh, using training costs. Although I do think it is a far greater percentage than the groups that where the GM grades performance based on how you acted according to what your character's class was, grading that and giving you XP, training bonuses or training deficits for not properly executing your class role. And I think what Jason said in his comments are, they're basically kind of right on. It's not a matter of right or wrong, and I hope I didn't come off that way in the episode that I thought gold for XP was wrong. I just have never understood the assertion that it's more fair, or it's more, or it gives the players more options. I guess that's what I always heard is it gives the players more options if it's just how are you acquiring the treasure. And in a strictly dungeoneering maybe campaign, then that could very well be, because that kind of campaign is probably going to be centered more or less around treasure. And one thing AD&D does, which is interesting, is that aside from that, not doing strictly gold for XP, is there is an XP value for magic items if you keep them and use them, and there is a gold value for magic items. So if you sell them, you get them that way. And in a lot of cases, maybe even in all cases, I haven't done a complete analysis of the treasure charts, but I think in most cases, the gold value of the magic item is higher, sometimes considerably higher than the XP value of keeping the item and using it. So as you said, that adds a lot to the idea of encumbrance. I really liked what Riley said about encumbrance. Determining if it's gold for XP and you've got to get the gold out of the dungeon. Encumbrance, limiting how much you can carry. Does there come a point where you run across some big valuable treasure trove, particularly if it's a magic item trove, where there's a high gold value, and maybe you start ditching armor, which is a high encumbrance item that most characters have. or you start ditching weapons, or you start having to choose between, uh, do I have to leave behind one magic weapon to take a better magic weapon with me? That whole juxtaposition of magic items, you're going magic item value, treasure value, and encumbrance, and how you're going to get out of the dungeon, and what provisions or maybe armor or weapons do you leave behind in order to take out the treasure that allows you to advance further. I think it's a good discussion. I think there should be some kind of, I do agree there should be sort of in-game known XP where players know that they're going to get XP for, if they, you know, they can help them determine which quests, for lack of a better term, they're going to go on, what they're going to seek in the game world. I'm not entirely convinced that if you want to allow for a variety of play in a campaign, that strictly gold for XP, and that's what I'm talking about, strictly gold for XP. There are a lot of advocates for strictly gold for XP as your system of advancement. I think that leads to a more mercantile campaign, a more mercenary campaign than you would have if XP can be awarded for a greater variety of character development. Again, for lack of a better term, character development. Different types of events and quests and relationships and character goals that you could be chasing within a campaign. I think it's a subject that's ripe for debate. I just don't know that I have the grasp of terminology and ability to turn ideas into terminology to say much more about it than I have. But thank you guys for calling in on that. I really appreciate that. And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. Part of the treasure found in the evil/neutral party's lair were 3 pieces of jewelry. I thought I'd roll these up real quick using the DMG. The process is a percentile roll to determine the range of base value, then determine the base value with the appropriate die types, then check for workmanship by rolling a 10-sided die. Each one indicates that it's an exceptional value, and it goes up to the top of that base value, or it goes to the next base value where it's checked again. And then anything that indicates gems, you roll a d8 to see if that piece of jewelry increases by 5,000 gold pieces by rolling a 1, and you keep rolling until you stop rolling ones because of the gems in the jewelry. So 3 pieces real quick. Percentile dice, 59%. That gives it 1,000 to 6,000 gold pieces. So I'll roll a d6 for the base value. That's 2,000 GP base value. Roll a d10 to see if it's exceptional. With a 3, it is not. Next piece of jewelry. And that last one would be silver with gems. So we do need to roll for gems. So we'll roll a d8 to see if the gems give any extra value. That's 1. That adds 5,000 to it. And we'll roll again and get a 7. So now the second piece of jewelry. Roll the percentile dice. 68%. That's the same 1,000 to 6,000 gold piece range, indicating silver jewelry with gems. So we'll roll for the base. That's a 5,000 gold piece base. See, is it exceptional quality? With a roll of a 5, it's not. Are the gems extra valuable? With a roll of a 2, they're not. All right, third piece of jewelry. Rolling the percentile dice, 94%. That puts in the top category of 2,000 to 12,000 gold pieces, platinum with gems. So we'll roll d6 twice. That's 6. That's 2. That's an 8,000 base value. We'll roll a d10 for a exceptional, and we get a 1. So it is exceptional. So that'll kick it up to the 12,000 gold piece range. We'll roll again to see if it's more exceptional. With a 2, it is not. So now we roll for the value of the gems. We get a 1. That's a good roll. So that's an additional 5,000. We roll 1 again. That's an additional 10,000. And can we get lucky a third time? No, just a 2. So that piece finally ends up being 22,000. So we have a piece of jewelry, silver with gems, that's worth 7,000 gold pieces. We have another piece of jewelry that's silver with gems, worth 5,000 gold pieces. And we have a piece of jewelry, platinum with gems, that is worth 22,000 gold pieces. And so that adds to the character's take for this adventure. So we return to our party the next day, after they had closed out what they had hoped would be their last day of exploring the upper section of the hills. They returned back to their sort of operating area where they've made their quarters to find out from Edgar and Sven and Katja that the transfer of the giant ant colony to a more remote but still fairly nearby hill had gone smoothly. And they also discovered that in the evening, a group of wolves had attacked the compound area, but unfortunately for the wolves, a heavy cavalry group had been on guard then, and they were easily dispatched. So they returned back up to the third upper level, and we'll roll an initial wandering monster check here. Nothing. It's all 3. So they return to the third upper level and go to the secret door that they had previously found and bypassed and kind of wedged closed in a way. So now they will open the door. They'll listen at the door first with Bernie. He would not hear anything if there's anything behind there. And then they have found the mechanism to open it. Gus is going to force it open, and he can't. So Bernie steps forward, and he is able to. So they open the secret door, and they find an armory. No monsters, no treasure, just some leftover armor and basic armor and basic weapons in various states of disrepair. It's a 30-foot by 30-foot room, and there's a spiral staircase on the opposite side from the north wall that they came in through. So we'll do a quick check around the room looking for any other secret doors or hidden items, and they do not find anything. So now they will go up the stairs. Up the stairs, they find themselves in a 30-foot east-west by 20-foot north-south room. The spiral staircase enters in the middle of the northern wall. In this room, they find also an empty room. This room is empty other than it looks like it's some sort of a workshop. There are tools. It also appears this may be there also appears to be some bits and pieces of metal and wood and a few parts that look like maybe this is the place where some of the armors and weapons in the armory downstairs were repaired. The party takes a rest before doing a more thorough search, and Sven locates a secret door in the middle of the south wall. So Bernie listens, and he would hear something if there's anything on the other side. I know I'm rolling the percentile dice again. We do need to do a wandering creature check here. There is nothing. So now Gus will attempt to open the door, and he does successfully. This room is 40 feet by 40 feet. The door they came in with is on the north wall. It is in the 20 the second 10-foot section away from the east wall. There is a door directly across from it in the south wall, and there is a door in the west wall, 20 feet in the 20-foot section up from the south wall. And when they step inside, they find, and it's going to be a monster and treasure. So let's see if we're rolling on the known monster chart. With a 43, we are. And rolling a 10, I'm coming across kobolds. We have some kobolds here. Kobolds are a first level creature typically. I don't believe they're listed. Let's see if they're listed under the 4th level, because that's where they are right now. Let's see here. No, they're not listed on the 4th level table at all. So they're listed on the 1st level table, and under the guise of the monster manual, the Dungeon Master's Guide, lesser monsters on lower levels have their numbers augmented by a like number of the same creature for each level of the dungeon beneath that of the assigned level they're encountered. For example, 1st level monsters on the 2nd level of the dungeon will be twice as numerous. So on the 1st level of the dungeon, kobolds are 6 to 18. So this would be 24 to 72. So this is going to be a good opportunity to break out a bunch of D6s, I think. Well, no, hold on. Let's see. 6 to 18 would be, I'd probably do 3d6 times 2. Yeah. No, that's not right. That would be 6d3. So a d6 times 3 would be, so I'll do that 4 times. So I rolled a 6, rolled another 6, rolled a 4, and rolled a 5. So that's going to total 21 times 3, 42 kobolds. No, wait, 63. 63 kobolds. That's even more. So now we haven't discovered the lair of these particular kobolds, so let's see if this room is the lair. It was 80%. It was a 40% chance I rolled an 85, so that is not it. But this is a large number of kobolds. So we're going to say among that number will be 2 of their leaders, and say 5 of their guards, because they still have a lot of leaders and guards to deal with. So 2 leaders and 5 guards plus 35 regular kobolds. So now the all-important surprise roll. Is the party surprised? On a 6, they are not. Are the kobolds surprised? On a 2, they are. We are also due for a wandering monster check, so I'm going to go ahead and roll that now. And if it is a positive, we're just going to say some more kobolds come in from one of the other entrances. With a 3, no wandering monster. So the party has surprise. Now, the good thing about this delve is that the entire party is present, other than Cudgel, who's off training in the fort city. So Katya is available, and this is a good time to probably break out the web. So how much area in this room can Katya catch with the web spell? Let's take a look. So that's 8 cubic inches. 8 cubic inches, and if we figure, and she's got enough range that she can basically enclose the entire far end of the room, so she can get half the room covered in webs. So we're going to assume basically an even distribution of kobolds in the room, like some sort of ideal gas. So half the room will have 17 of the kobolds, 3 of the guards, and 1 of the leaders, and the other half will have 18 of the kobolds, 2 of the guards, and 1 of the leaders, the other one of the leaders. So we'll just roll a d6. On 1, 2, or 3, we call it the extra guard. On a 4, 5, or 6, the extra guard is on the party side of the room. On a 6, the extra guard is over there. So there's the far end of the room that Katya is enclosing has 18 kobolds, 1 leader, and 2 of the 5 guards. And they will have to make saving throws versus spell to attempt to escape as the webs come up. Let's see. Kobolds are 1d4 hit points, so call that 1 minus 1. So on the saving throw matrix, that's probably equivalent to a 0 level fighter. So their save versus spell is 19. And I'm not going to roll 19 d6s, d20s on, or roll the d20 19 times while recording. So hold on a second. So none of the regular kobolds were able to escape the web, rolling for the 2 guards and the leader. The leader, he rolled a 4, guard a 1, a guard an 8. So all the kobolds on the far side of the room were caught in the web. That leaves 17 plus a leader and 3 guards on the party's side. So the guards and the leader have 4 hit points. The others will be 1d4. Our 1d4 roll is 2. So we have 2 17 times. So the party moves in and engages. Everybody other than Katya, of course. So we get our... All right, so after taking a look at all the attack matrices and weapon versus armor, etc., the party will be hitting on 13s. The kobolds will be hitting mainly on 20s. If they get around behind someone, there are some chances for getting on a lower number. But Gus and Sven can only be hit from the back. So the party moves forward. Gus attacks the nearest kobold. Let's see. He would seek out the leader. With an 8, he misses. Bernie attacks. With a 17, he hits. And with his bonuses, that's sufficient to cut down a kobold. Let's see. Did he get one of the guards, maybe? 1 or 2 on a d20. Nope, he didn't. He just got a regular kobold. So kobold goes down. Edgar attacks one on an 11 with his bonuses. That's sufficient to hit. He did not go after guards. That's a dead kobold. Sven attacks. He gets a hit with an 18. He did not attack a guard. That's a dead kobold. Harl gets a hit. That was also not a guard. Quinn gets a hit. Not a guard. Prier rolls a 2. He misses. Michael gets a hit. That was not a guard. So that is a dead kobold. So that's going all the way through the party. They got 6 hits. Second surprise round, Gus gets a 9 with his +4 bonus. That's just good enough. So he kills the leader. Edgar, he takes a swing. With a 6, he misses. Katya moves in. She rolls a 2 and misses. Bernie, he rolls a 13. He gets a hit. Let's see, we're down to just a handful of kobolds here. Let's see. That was not a guard, though. He kills that kobold. He'll get 2 attacks this round. I'll go ahead and do the second one. A 3 misses. Sven rolls a 7. That's barely a hit. And that is one of the guards. Harl gets a hit. That's the other guard. So he's down. Quinn gets a hit. That's a dead kobold. Prier gets a hit. That's a dead kobold. Michael misses. So at this point, with 12 dead and a bunch entrapped in a web, and one of the leaders was killed, and that's the leader that's outside the web, the negatives are more than enough. They're going to fail a morale check. We'll roll the dice anyway just to see. 88. with all the negative bonuses to them, they are going to surrender. So the party brings up some of their men that are trailing behind them, and they help extract the kobolds from the web, and they cut through it and get them out and get them marched on their way under guard. Well, actually, they're going to tell them to stand by in the previous room in case they run into more kobolds on this level, and then they'll just march them all at once. They'll get them all secured. But that'll take some time. We'll roll a wandering monster check in between. 2, they don't get anything. So now the party is going to do a thorough search of the room here. And of course, there's the treasure to deal with. Our treasure will be rolling twice with a bonus to the percentile roll here on the treasure roll. They rolled a 99, so that's a magic item. That's actually over 100%. And what I've been doing on that is I've been treating that as 2 magic items. And then the second roll is a 61, so plus 10%. That's going to be 1,000 gold pieces, and it is located in iron trunks. So they've got some iron trunks with some gold and a couple of magic items. So since we just rolled up some treasure from the previous day to see what that was, with that jewelry, let's go ahead and roll this treasure, and that'll be the end of this part of this session. And we'll get to, maybe we'll get through the rest of the level the next time. Let's see here. Let's get to our treasure tables. All right, so the random treasure tables here. We'll roll some dice here. We'll get, that's a D12, so we don't need that. Try again here. Got a 61. So that's, no, I'm sorry, I'm adding 10. That's not right. 51. So that's going to be miscellaneous magic. Which miscellaneous magic table will we be rolling on? Well, let's roll to see what the other general one is. We'll roll on a specific table. And we rolled on a 45. So that's a rod, staves, and wands. So now let's see which table we're going to roll on here. So for the miscellaneous magic, we're rolling on table E5. And then on the rod, staff, and wand, we'll be rolling on table D. All right, so rolling on table D, that's going to be come up with either a rod or a staff. And we've got a 56. That is, Staff of the Magi. And then on table E5 here, we rolled another Talisman of Zaggy. Now, one of these has attached themselves to Katja. No one quite knows what it is yet. They've got Nantor and Cudgel kind of researching it for them. So let's see, seeing a talisman and maybe having it look somewhat similar, will the party notice the similarity and will they then pick it up? So I'm going to give it 50-50 that they notice the similarity. And with a, well, I guess I should have said high low before I rolled. All right, so low is they notice. All right, and with a 6, they notice. So the chance they're going to pick it up, I'm going to say, is about 10%. And with a 67, they don't pick it up. They kind of, okay, we'll just take the trunk with us. And if you haven't listened to prior episodes or just don't know what Talisman of Zaggy is, it has wishes, and depending on who picks it up, I think it's charisma. I'll have to look that part up. They'll get like a number of wishes equal to 1 for every 3 points of charisma or whatever it is. And I don't know what it is about this party and wishes. They've gotten a ring of wishes. They've run across a pool of wishes, and they've got now 2 talismans of Zaggy. So it's crazy town here. So with that, and with having done the jewelry, we'll probably end it here. Well, no, probably. We are going to end it here, and we'll continue the exploration on the next episode. So I hope you've enjoyed. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voicemail on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.